Yeah. Hello, everybody. Greg here. So we came into today with a neutral to slightly bullish bias. The markets had come off of the lows after the Iran-Israeli situation. Seemed like everything was okay. Things appeared to be heating up a little bit there in the Middle East with warnings, and the positive move the markets had earlier this morning have faded, and it's down near the low of the day. Um, this big wide range bar here was suggesting would go up. And when I saw it, I mentioned it in the green room, looking at the overnight uh, data and the way it went down and back up. I said that looks like it's going to go up. I didn't take the trade. Why didn't I take the long trade? Well, resistance was right there. It was a wide range bar. And things are just relatively neutral, being in trading range here. And the middle of the range, I thought the reward to risk wasn't worth the trade. Well, in retrospect, right, it goes that way, but you got to adhere to your plan. So now, news driving this market as it has, you see what's happening here as it's moving down. So any short-term move, whether up or down, you got to put it in perspective of the bigger picture to keep things in check, so to speak. Now, the daily time frame I mentioned pre-market looked like the beginnings of a topping pattern. Covered this in the weekend letter. Now, the beginnings of a topping pattern, no matter what it looks like, it could be a V kind of a top, it could be an M kind of a top, right? It could be a head and shoulders kind of a top. Right? No matter what it is, at some point it has to confirm what's going on because it could just flip back up in the other direction, especially with a news-driven market. And so we can't get too caught up in short-term moves on a 5-minute chart, or some people might be using even less than that, or to the downside, and putting it in perspective of its range. Where is this going to close at the end of the day? It's about 12:30. This could easily become a topping tail, I should say, a big green bar, a wide bar. It was a green bar about a half hour ago or so. And you got to be careful not to get caught up into thinking that it looks like that, so I may as well get long, because you can't assume it's going to close that way until you're closer to the end of the day. Really, just common sense. So as this is beginning to move down, it's in violating the beginnings of these pivot lows. It looks like it's going to go lower. Um, but again, mentioning the news, I mean, eventually, I think it's going to come down into this area. There was the options expiration last week, and this had moved up into it, back down again, and now that that's out of the way, it opens up the possibility for a short-term correction. And I don't think anything more than that, unless something serious happens um, in the Middle East. So we'll just have to see how that plays out. Looking at a few other markets, in SMH rolling over a little bit. The Qs, similar type of a topping pattern there. Now that it took out that low, initial stabilization, there was a tick extreme here. So typically that's going to get prices to at least bounce. We'll see how far they go from there. Just, I may as well type it in here. I'm looking for another symbol. Um, you know, Oil looked like it was rolling over, and it came back off of the lows, I guess, as that was developing. And then you can see how now it's coming down. It's up at the top of the trading range on the weekly time frame. The 65-minute is just sideways here. So indecision based on that market right at this time. Consumer discretionary is doing pretty well. It's been not doing much of anything for, like a lot of things, for about a month and a half now, maybe even 2 months. But Tesla was doing great today. Let's see, it's up at the top of the range, the best performer, backing off a little bit now. Tractor Supply. But broader markets, financials were doing well now that they rolled over. There's more information suggesting the market is going to come down a bit. Weekly chart up at resistance, a couple of larger red bars. We'll see if it closes under the low. Regional banks, weekly chart rolling over. We need to see confirmation, a breakdown under those lows. Biotech, leading the way down. IWM starting to break here. Again, we need to see from a daily chart perspective the close, but this break here, intraday short opportunity could be at hand. This comes back up again. Look at the weekly chart, and these look like they're going to go lower. It was the USO that we looked at. Interest rates dropping quite a bit, and they were dropping all morning. And so I had mentioned in the room or pre-market was maybe money moving into bonds, a safe place to, put the money. And then the markets were just ripping higher. And I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. But if you got a lot of money to shift around, it takes a little time to do that. So you can see how the way this was coming down in a very controlled, systematic way. And you can see TLT, bond prices. So money clearly moving into the bonds, pushing interest rates down. And we'll just have to see where oil ends up. FANGs, things pretty much just still within this trading range. So we'll see where things are in the latter part of the day. Give us a stronger bias as much as that possibly could be with so much news overhanging the market potentially that could come at us. So what do we do in a situation like this? Well, if you see a trade, take it, give it ample room. Money management is always the key to not getting taken out of this trading game. So pick your points. Always best point for shorts is to get in near some resistance area where there are sellers, and vice versa for longs. And then from there, just manage it accordingly. If you have questions, email me, Greg at Master Trader.